that we're waiting for, our Vice Director on Academic Affairs, Associate Professor Dr. Refnaldi. Good morning, Professor.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Okay, yes, I can hear clearly.
Okay, but maybe you have to introduce Prof. Yuniardi too and Pak Junaidi too here, I think.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. That because that's still in our video, Prof. Okay, good morning, Dr. Junaidi.
Good morning,
Thank you. Thank you to
you.
join us in this conference.
Thank
And
you.
and then have joined us our professor, Dr. Yuniawardi. Good morning, Prof. Okay, finally I can see your face. Good morning, Professor. Okay, Prof.
Morning.
Okay. Good morning, Prof. So there for this morning have complete for all of in our invited speaker and all of the honors for our all professor and the dean in Universitas Negeri Padang. Okay, because right now in we are at this is at 9 a.m. So we will going to the opening ceremony and then please, Mr. Hari Setia.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Ceria. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Excellencies, honorable guests, distinguished delegates, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. The Honorable Rector and Vice Rector Universitas Negeri Padang, Dean and Vice Dean in Universitas Negeri Padang, all participants the 7th Padang International Conference on Economics, Education, Business and Accounting, PICEEBA 2021. It is a great honor and pleasure for me. My name is Hari Setia Putra, and on behalf of the committee, we would like to welcome to all of you for the annual session of the 7th Padang International Conference on Economics, Education, Business and Accounting, PICEEBA 2021 through webinar. Our invited keynote speakers, Associate Professor Dr. Ahmad Elamer, Brunel University, United Kingdom. Associate Professor Dr. Awanisku Ishak, University Utara Malaysia, Malaysia. Associate Professor Dr. James Hazelton, Macquarie University, Australia. And Associate Professor Dr. Shamwil, Universitas Negeri Padang, Indonesia. For the following agenda, it will be the Holy Quran recitation by Hasan Basri Duri.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إن هذا القرآن يهدي للتي هي أقوم ويبشر المؤمنين الذين يعملون الصالحات أن لهم وأن الذين لا يؤمنون بالآخرة أعتدنا لهم عذابا أليما. ويدعو الإنسان بالشر دعاءه بالخير. وكان الإنسان عجولا. ويدعو الإنسان بالشر دعاءه بالخير. ويدعو الإنسان بالشر دعاءه بالخير. وكان الإنسان عجولا. صدق الله العظيم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Without further ado, we would like to invite Assistant Professor Gesit Tabrani as the conference chair to read the official report on 7th PICEEBA 2021.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. The Honorable Rector and Vice Rectors Universitas Negeri Padang, the Honorable Dean and Vice Deans of Faculty of Economics, and all of the Deans at Universitas Negeri Padang, the distinguished our invited speakers, the excellencies, authors, and participants. And I would like to extend my warmest welcome to the 7th Padang International Conference on Education, Economics, Business, and Accounting, PICEEBA. First, all praise due to Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, who has bestowed our pleasure for the health, the opportunities, and the happiness we feel today. Without His mercy, it's impossible for all of us to join here. Secondly, salawat and greetings remain put to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who has been guiding us on the path of Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. Today, I also would like to express my deep gratitude to all the committees who have worked hard, sacrificed their time, and taking the risk out of their comfort zone during this pandemic. It's honor for me to be here on this occasion because the 7th PICEEBA is the third virtual international conference held by Faculty of Economics, Universitas Negeri Padang. And in this conference, we have 97 papers were registered with almost 900 participants from various regions. However, the preparation and the implementation of this conference is not free from various weaknesses which cause inconvenience for all. And I, as the chairman of the committee, apologize for the inconvenience. The last, I'm looking forward to see you again in other occasion in the near future. Thank you very much. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Among this time, we would like to invite Vice Rector of Academic Affairs, Universitas Negeri Padang, to convey acknowledgement and officially open for the 7th PICEEBA 2021.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Alhamdulillahirabbil alamin. Shalatu wassalamu ala asrofil anbiya wal mursalin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi rasulillahi ajma'in. Asyhadu an la ilaha illallah wahdahu la syarikalah wa asyhadu anna Muhammadar Rasulullah la nabiyya. The Honorable Deputy Rectors of Universitas Negeri Padang, Dean of the Faculty of Economics, Associate Professor Dr. Idris, Deans of other faculties, Deputy Deans, invited speakers, distinguished guests, and participants of the 7th Padang International Conference on Education, Economics, Business, and Accounting, organized by the Faculty of Economics, Universitas Negeri Padang. We are now together witnessing the opening one of the 2021 International Conference Series in Universitas Negeri Padang, which has received generous support from many partners. It is realized that hosting the virtual international conference provides us new challenges, especially in managing participants and presentation schedules and the use of technology. So the theme of this conference is opportunities and challenges for economics, business, and education in the new normal VUCA era. Ladies and gentlemen, representing directors of Universitas Negeri Padang, I am very pleased to join the opening of this virtual conference, despite the challenge posed by the COVID-19 pandemic. I wish to convey my sincere appreciation to the Dean of Faculty of Economics of Universitas Negeri Padang for making this event happen today. I would also like to thank all the distinguished speakers and moderators for taking time to participate from near and far in today's conference. We never expected the spread of COVID-19 pandemic, which has disrupted every aspect of our livelihood, the movement of goods and movement of people. But the severity of the disruption has made us realize the importance of connectivity for economic growth and the prosperity in the region. Ladies and gentlemen, as the COVID-19 pandemic continues to ravage the world, living citizens of the world, a new world order, businesses need to navigate their financial and operational obligation. They are also expected to meet the needs of their greatest asset, customers and suppliers. I think some of the paper will discuss issues related to this. So the crisis may have paved way for uncertainties, but it has also created opportunities for sectors to emerge and grow. While some will fall and vanish if not properly managed and strategized, as the companies who will stand firm in this era will be those that implemented risk management as part of their business strategy. While this crisis is first and foremost a public health issue, which has claimed the lives of thousands of people worldwide and still counting, the economic would no doubt be overwhelming and is likely to create major economic meltdown in both the formal and informal sectors. So in the new normal, business owners are faced with overwhelming competing challenges. A business success depends on part on the economic system of the countries where it is located and where it sells its product. A nation economic system is the combination of policies, laws, and choices made by its government to establish the system that determine what goods and services are produced and how they are allocated. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, businesses in the new normal require a new mindset to recover from the crisis, thereby identifying, analyzing, and addressing effective strategies that would help the business return to normality and grow. And this is the time to build organizational relationship with strategic partners for proper execution of effective strategies. I'm really sure that some paper will address issues related to this. Management personnel and stakeholders are quickly turning their attention to the next, that moment of unpredictable and probably muted economic recovery with newly identified threats and opportunities. So this is the new era defined by fast-changing initiative to shift the culture norms, societal beliefs, and values, such as renewed brand purpose. Leaders, corporate, and politicals are faced with the urgency to reopen their business. Consequent to pandemic, organizations globally are experiencing an unfamiliar change in their work processes and harnessing their workforces optimally. Companies are yet to fully understand and determine how remote working will help achieve corporate objectives beyond the survival harms. Profitably, and business models are being cautiously reviewed. Teams and workforces try to function and perform in line with the expected and deliverable while struggling to cope with even more summary personal and existential challenges in the new normal. So the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic has changed customers, employees, citizens, and human experience, attitude, and behavior forever. The norms of behavioral consumer psychology are deviating from expected curves. Result, though displaying expected changes, are creating sweaty anxiety for boardroom decision. So the crisis has caused a fundamental change in human-human interaction and behavior. So in the new world order, companies would necessarily need to review and redesign operational flow and operating models. These changes would impact greatly on design, communication, running expenses, remunerations, investment, as well as education. So the definition of what people need and want has been reshaped, and businesses need to blend into the new emerging ecosystem so they can properly reposition for sustainability and profitability. Then the global pandemic has created uncertainty and forced companies to reevaluate and reinvent how business operations units are leveraged. It has redefined how digital platforms can be used in supporting and ensuring continuity in the business through and beyond the crisis. Distinguished guest participants, ladies and gentlemen, those are things that I can quote from several sources related to economic, business, accounting, and education. And I'm sure that some of the things that I have mentioned previously will be properly discussed in some of the parallel papers in this conference. Distinguished guests, participants, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the academic staff, administrative staff, and students of Universitas Negeri Padang, we'd like to thank our invited speakers, Associate Professor Dr. Ahmad Elame from Brunel University, England, Associate Professor Dr. Awanisku Ishak from University Utara, Malaysia, Associate Professor Dr. James Hazelton from Macquarie University, Australia, Associate Professor Dr. Samuel from Universitas Negeri Padang, Indonesia. We also thank all parallel session speakers and of course participants for your contributions, which will make this conference a success. Who could have imagined a better exchange than seeing plenary speakers from several countries and representatives from many institutions here joining forces in the conference to share ideas, research findings, and the important things is having opportunities to renew old friendships, to make new acquaintances, and also to have the virtual photo sessions. So, ladies and gentlemen, we expect we will learn new ideas from each other, which we can adopt and adapt to further improve our work in this important area. I know that there will be many interesting and useful presentations, both in the plenary session and in parallel session. I believe many good experiences will be shared and good lessons will be learned. Members of organizing committee has been working very hard. I would like to thank them for their dedication, time, and effort. I wish also to thank our patrons, individual and organization partners, and volunteers. Without their generosity, we would not be able to create a total environment to support your full participation. Thank you all for your presence and participation. And you are the very important part of the conference success. So please enjoy the conference. Ladies and gentlemen, by saying Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, the 7th Padang International Conference on Education, Economics, Business, and Accounting is officially opened. Thank you. Wabillahi taufiq wal hidayah. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
For closing the opening ceremony with the blessings, we would like to invite Assistant Professor Dr. Zul Afdal to lead the dua recitation for Muslim.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Ladies and gentlemen, let us bow our head for a moment, pray to God Allah Azza wa Jalla that the conference will be blessed. I will lead this prayer based on the teaching of Islam, and those who are not Muslim, you are pleased to pray according to each of your belief. We start with istighfar 3 times. Astaghfirullahalazim. أستغفر الله العظيم أستغفر الله العظيم أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين حمدا شاكرين حمدا ناعمين حمدا يوافي نعمه ويكافي مزيده يا ربنا لك الحمد كما ينبغي لجلال وجهك الكريم وعظيم سلطانك اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد اللهم ربنا ظلمنا أنفسنا وإن لم تغفر لنا وترحمنا لنكونن من الخاسرين اللهم اغفر لنا ذنوبنا ولوالدينا وارحمهما كما ربيانا صغارا وارحمهما كما ربيانا صغارا وارحمهما كما ربيانا صغارا ولإخواننا ولجوادتنا ولجميع المسلمين والمسلمات والمؤمنين والمؤمنات الأحياء منهم والأموات إنك السميع قريب مجيب الدعوة ويا قاضي الحاجة برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين يا الله. Today in this room we gather here to bring about the 7th Padang International Conference on Education, Economics, Business and Accounting with the theme Opportunities and Challenges for Economics, Business and Education in the New Normal and Future Era. Make this international conference as a useful Senate Assembly, as a medium of sharing useful ideas, knowledge, and experiences of scholars, researchers, and students of various disciplines. May the conference we organize today benefit to our life, broaden our knowledge, science our ideas, and lead us to be successful, productive person, with in turn will boost dignity of our nation. Allahumma arinal haqqa haqqa warzuqna ittiba'ah wa arinal batila batila warzuqna ijtinabah. Ya Allah, show us the truth as true and inspire us to follow it. Show us falsehood and inspire us to abstain from it. Ya Allah, help me remember you, to be grateful to you, and to worship you in an excellent manner. Allahumma a'inni ala dhikrika wa syukrika wa husni ibadatika. Ya Allah, you are the one who can fulfill our dua. Rabbana atina fid dunya hasanah wa fil akhirati hasanatan wa qina azaban nar. Subhanaka rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifun wa salamun alal mursalin walhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Wassalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Ladies and gentlemen, we would like to invite our moderator of plenary session, Assistant Professor Husnil Khotimah, PhD. Time is yours.
Thank you to our MC. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Good morning, everyone. And welcome to today, the 7th Padang International Conference on Education, Economic, Business, and Accounting 2021. First of all, let's express our glad and gratitude to the Almighty Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. Salawat and salam to our Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. The Honorable our Rector and Vice Rector Universitas Negeri Padang, our Dean and Vice Dean, Head of Department, all of lecturer and staff, conference committees, and especially for our invited speakers. Let me to introduce about myself. My name is Husnil Khotimah, PhD. I'm an assistant professor in the management department. Today, I'm addressing as moderator in this session. Well, before we get started, I'd like to go over a few items to the audience so you know how to participate in today's event. Okay, but before we go to our rules, I would like to say thank you for all of the guys that have attend, and especially in our Dean room. Hello, assalamualaikum. Good morning.
Morning.
Yeah. Good morning.
Okay. And now we go with our session rules. The first session is the speaker's presentation, and then the second session will be come out with the Q&A session. Actually, you have the opportunity to submit the text question into Zoom chat, or you might go through the YouTube live streaming, and then you might send in your question at any time during the presentation. We will collect this and address them during the Q&A session at the end of the speaker presentation. Well, as our theme for this conference is opportunities and challenges for economic, business, and education in the new normal and VUCA era. VUCA means validity, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. So we have invited 4 excellent speakers today. We will be hearing their presentation. But before it, I want to take a few minutes of your time and briefly explain their excellent profile. Our first speakers is the Associate Professor Dr. Awanis Bintiku Ishak. Assalamualaikum. Hello, Dr. Awanis. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Okay, I hope you enjoy the conference. Well, let me to proceed your briefly profile. Dr. Awanis is currently attached to the School of Business Management SBM as an associate professor. She is currently supervising numerous PhD or DBA students and also master and undergraduate students. She's also conducted several training and workshops, and prior working as an academic, Dr. Awanis worked as the practitioner in various industries. For education, Dr. Awanis holds her PhD in organizational behavior at the University Utara Malaysia in 2012. And her research area are positive organizational behavior, employee wellness and health behavior, personality of highly stressful occupation, prison and correctional study, and behavior in information technology. Well, Dr. Awanis, you have 25 minutes to present your paper. And now we call upon Associate Professor Dr. Awanis to deliver your presentation. Time is yours.
Thank you very much, Dr. Husnil. So I'm going to share with you my presentation. Before my presentation, Okay, can everyone see my presentation?
Yes, yes, we can see it.
All right, okay, thank you very much.
Dr. We can see your presentation.
Thank you. So I would like to start with my presentation. I'm the first speaker, the only woman among the men. So I shall start first. Okay, the honorable rectors and honorable deputy rector, honorable dean and vice deans, associate professors, doctors, students, okay, all the excellencies, authors, academic students, and everybody. So this is my presentation. My presentation is within the VUCA era. So this is our journey. Okay, our journey after we have known that we are in a very, very volatile, uncertain, complex, and quite ambiguous era. So that there is none like whatsoever the practice that we have done before, which is before previously our world was a steady world, a predictable world with an ordinary and definite elements in it. So now the era has changed to the VUCA era. So our world is seriously undergoing a serious transformation that presents more and more signs of what we describe as VUCA, which is again volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguity. So on top of that, the era is here to come. We have to embrace the era. We need to embrace the era and learn on how to survive and how to sustain. So this is especially so for academics. Academics this is the case of academicians in University Utara Malaysia. On top of that, our world today, we have known the term digitalization. We have known the term of Internet of Things. We have known the terms of artificial intelligence. We have known the terms of big data, you know, the social media foundation of decision making using the big data. And another drastic change, which is the transformation of the generations. The generation from previously was very quite a long time ago was baby boomers. After that, it was generation X, generation Y, and now it's more towards generation millennials and generation Z. So everything we have to put into our plate and try to maneuver or try to think of a way on how to sustain or how to survive in this academic world. So today, I'm going to present on how UUM try to prepare academicians for the VUCA era through the Web 2.0. And we use this Web 2.0 training 2.0 applications, knowledge and skills in our curriculum design, management and development course, which is for the teaching and learning. So this is our journey, which is preparing our academics for VUCA era. So I would like to brief a few things about our this study. Okay, basically, this study is actually being initiated by the Malaysian Higher Education Institution. Okay, they have a training done for all universities, private as well as public university, especially public university, in terms of the curriculum design, management and development training. So ACAP as the agency, okay, as the responsible academy under Malaysian Higher Education Institution. HACAP, we call it as Higher Education Leadership Academy under the Malaysian Higher Education in the ministry. Okay, they are the one who will do the training and develop leaders, which are the academics, to the required quality and how to be respected in the industry. So this is in lieu with ACAP objective, which is to bring impact to local higher learning institution and to elevate the standing globally. Okay, and it is being done through this training. We call it as CDMD. And UUM UTLC, or UUM Teaching and Learning Center, is the center that is responsible to give the training to the northern part of Malaysia, to the lecturers, tutors, associate professors, for everybody, academics, educators, on this 2.0 in terms of the CDMD, how to design the curriculum accordingly. Okay, basically this is our research. We have got the grants, which we call as a Scholarship of Teaching and Learning. This grant, this is by UTLC to encourage academics to do several studies in terms of the education, teaching, and learning. So I am the representative of this group. Okay, I'm going to present our study. Basically, I am also the representative of the School of Business Management. I'm the representative and then for my dean, Professor Dr. Salniza Muhammad Saleh. So dikirim salam. And this is part of the this is the briefing lah about the study. So in terms of the content, what I'm going to discuss is that what is the problem, the literature, methodology, and the result discussion, and as well as the conclusion. So basically, as we know, the emergence of a chaotic or a very uncertain era, which we have already know, which is VUCA. And it gives the problem, it's not this problem, it's a challenge. The challenge to all industries, all the societies, the communities, students in higher education, in manufacturing. It gives a very, very challenging on how to embrace this particular era and how to survive and sustain in the industry. So of this having in of us being in the VUCA era, it's actually cause us breakdown of order, whereby especially in organizations such as higher education institution. And then most recently, we are now, the challenge now is the COVID-19 pandemic, whereby it's completely transformed millions of lives in the matter of days. It started since end of 2019 until now, 2021. So within that particular time, within that particular moment, period, whatever it takes, especially for education, okay, education, public universities, private universities, we are trying on how to overcome this problem. So one of the ways on how to overcome this problem is looking at the online learning. But to make it practiced by the academics is quite difficult, because academics sometimes they are quite skeptic, you know, especially there are some demography of the lecturers, you know, the older generations are quite reluctant, because they assume that they may have some problem in using Web 2.0 in the teaching and learning. So this is how we try to overcome that particular problem through an intensive training in curriculum, but by using Web 2.0. So the COVID-19 has been a normal situation. COVID-19 now we have to embrace. So nothing that we can do. But in order to survive and sustain, we need, as a higher education institution, we need to respond quickly to the rapid changes innovatively. So now the enhanced online learning has become the new driver in changing the higher education teaching and learning. Okay, that is number one problem. The next problem is about our young generation. Our young generation consists of the millennials and the generation Z. Where they are growing up with the technology. They have laptops. They open their eyes. They already have smartphones. They have smart TVs. They have Wi-Fi. They have online games, cloud, and social media, and so on. Okay, so this is their new normal. Their new normal. They have known the Google, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Discord application. And this is like drinking water for them. Okay, so they are actually a society in the digital and technological transformation. So of course, looking at their needs and necessities, of course, is very wiseful to use the Web 2.0 as the platform, or the tools. And it has to be included during the curriculum design, management, and developing of the curriculum. However, many educators are quite reluctant to adopt technological innovation, especially at the when they started to face with the COVID-19 pandemic. The usage of 2.0 tools actually will lead to a transformation in the way educators work and support students in learning. So this is the idea. So Ministry of Education of Malaysia, they have realized about that. And through ARCAP, they has introduced the CDMD. So in terms of the 2.0, referring to the 2.0, it refers to the internet as an intermediary for interaction among individuals through tools and technologies such as blogs, wikis, podcasts, rather than using the internet merely as an information provider. So when we design the curriculum, the teaching and learning, the activities, okay, the collaborative learning, everything, it should be through using the Web 2.0. Okay, this particular youth, okay, they are currently the millennial or the generation X, which drastically starting to enter our education industry. They are now grown up and become the age of dramatic technological change in our society. So the use of latest technology should be utilized best in the teaching and learning process. The curriculum introduced must be in line with the latest requirement with the rapid evolving technology innovation. So we are looking at online learning, teaching and learning through asynchronous and synchronous method, through various platforms, through various tools, but we need to have the online, the internet. So most probably the educators now, they have to think in terms of a systemic way on how to train the the students, okay, let them have their own experience, let them combine from pedagogy to andragogy, which is through cybergogy. So cybergogy will look into aspect of pedagogy and andragogy. Web 2.0 tools has been used to facilitate students' collaboration, ideas, knowledge sharing, and interaction and communication with others. So in this particular training, okay, the trainees, who we call as trainees or respondent, or the participants of this particular training program, they will have the opportunity to be trained in terms on how to use this particular softwares or application, and how this application can be used creatively and innovatively to entice the interests of the new generation students to be involved in the education. So among the research question that we have put into this study is we want to look at the level of effectiveness of the information technology through the use of Web 2.0 application in the CDMD courses. So and then the next question is that how can the Web 2.0 application improve the level of achievement, understanding of participants in the CDMD courses? And number 3, what is the level of use of Web 2.0 application in the course implemented by participants in the next CDMD training courses? So now, in what I'm going to present is that this is the training of the educators, of the academics. They are being trained on how to use and how to use this Web 2.0 when they want to design their curriculum. So now, we are going to the part 2. So basically, I've been mentioning CDMD. CDMD is actually Curriculum Design, Management and Development. It is a series of training workshops by RCAP, Ministry of Education, and it involved the academics from IPTA, which is higher education, HEIs, higher education institution. Most of them are from public university at the northern part of Malaysia, which is from USM, UITM, UNIMAP, and there is one state university, which is Insania. And then the teaching location is at the UTLC of UUM. They have equipped with a room which is very, very conducive to do the training. And actually, it is being based by 3. There are 3 levels of training. First, they have to come for the basic level of training. In that particular training, they will, by the end of the course, they will know how to apply the knowledge. They have the skill in order to plan for their learning experience of students in their respective discipline. And number 2 is that they are required to do a TOT for their fellow lecturers in their schools, the departments, and that is compulsory. This is part of the assignment. And then after that, the next level, after they have passed the basic level, they are required to undergo intermediate level. So in this intermediate level, by end of the learning outcome, they will look at the value of suitability of CDMD knowledge in the field. They will look how in terms of how or ideas on how to insert the Web 2.0 when they are doing the design of their curriculum. And number 2 is that they as the educator themselves, they have to adapt the CDMD knowledge and skills in this field. And also, they have to train others at the university level. And another level is the advanced level. Advanced level is when they have to conduct research. Okay, this is research, and they have to do a study on the curriculum leadership. They have to implement training and provide consultation in the field of CDMD. towards outside parties from UUM, university. So now this study focuses on the technique or methods used in each series of the CDMD. So VUCA, as everybody knows, I will just skip that. And looking at the Web 2.0 application. If we talk about Web 2.0, now is Web 4.0, of course, but a small step, it will lead to the bigger step. Okay, so this is the first step that UUM is trying to make sure that all our educators, academics, tutors are quite well versed with this particular application. So from time to time, they will be trained in terms of the application. Okay. Next is we are going to look at the methodology. So the methodology of the study is actually, it is action research. This study is action research because we want to look at the processes of training, of inculcating the educators to be well versed with the Web 2.0 and to know how to use this particular application when they want to develop their own curriculum of their field. So it will be a series of training, and there will be a series of observation at the department, school, and universities. They will have to do a series of training. Okay, and then they also will be given surveys by the end of the very beginning and the end of the particular, for every level of training. And then the research design is actually qualitative and quantitative. And the level of reflection, they are very encouraged to have reflection for the beginners, intermediate, and advanced level, as well as the interview. So now, based from the observation, based from the interview, based from the survey, okay, at the very beginning of the CDMD training, 20% they did not realize and never heard about Web 2.0. That was being done at the end of 2018 to 2019. That is the very first stage. So it is quite, we have already established that 20% do not know or do not heard about Web 2.0. But 80% realize and know about the existence of Web 2.0. So this is quite you know, something which is very good, And then 90% know how to operate computers and using internet applications well. Okay, and 10% only assume that they are at the beginner's level. Okay, and 10% are not sure about what is about Web 2.0. But 90% of the trainee are aware of the Web 2.0. So during the observation and the reflection cycle, 30% of the participant has less knowledge about 2.0, Web 2.0. They only get used and familiar with some of the social media tools, and mostly used Web 2.0 tools, which like the most common, which is YouTube, Wikipedia, Facebook, Google, and WhatsApps. So most of the academics, educators, they are blending using this Web 2.0 tools in their academic, in their curriculum design. Number two is that what we found out was not all submitting the assignments to the open courseware account and email. Not all, but they managed to learn on how to submit by group through Padlet and BlendSpace. So this one is Padlet and BlendSpace is also one of the tools for Web 2.0. So it's quite good also. It's quite new findings for UUM UTLC. And most of them prefer to use Padlet, Blank Space, Google Drive, and Dropbox. They also shared links of their work and some materials from YouTube, SlideShare, ResearchGate, and Google Scholar. So these are how when they have to send the assignments and everything, they were asked to post it in the Padlet. This is some of the examples. Okay, so now at the first cycle, they were exposed with a curriculum table. They have exercises. They have a series of brainstorming. They have a series of activities that require them to learn about Web 2.0. So the first cycle, actually 65% are quite satisfied and they are very familiar with the Web 2.0. During the second cycle, after they have gained the knowledge and skills of the curriculum and what does the Web 2.0 can do to assist in terms of their teaching and learning in their curriculum, okay, they have the curriculum implementation. This second cycle is where they are required to use the Web 2.0 in their curriculum design, using various Web 2.0. So 70% has managed to do that. Okay. Next, the next step is that the third cycle, they are required to do the CDMD portfolio, which consists of their trainings to the lecturers, to their peers, to the other schools, to outside of UUM. So they are able to deliver that, and they choose and apply suitable Web 2.0 tools. So most of them are familiar with the tool of 75%. Okay, based on the reflection from the participants, most of them said that on the first day, they struggle to learn and apply Web 2.0 tools, but they are very passionate. They are intrigued. They want to know more because they realize that sooner or later, they have to learn. They have to embrace this particular application in order to help them, to assist them in their teaching and learning, and how to entice their students through online, to entice the interest of the students to learn, on their own. So they do not even feel stressed to use the tool, but they really enjoy browsing and adapting the tools for the portfolio and program planning. So in order to implement these two tasks, they need extra effort to understand how to use Web 2.0 tools effectively during the next training session. So this is the series of training for the CDMD using Web 2.0. Okay. What happened now? What happened now? After 2020, now is 2021. Okay, most of the academics, educators, UUM educators, especially in our School of Business Management, they are very, very comfortable to use Web 2.0 application, and they are able to blend that in their curriculum design of subjects, courses that are required for them to use the Web 2.0. So it is very, very bright, okay, bright future, I guess, for this. And hopefully, we cannot escape from VUCA. We cannot escape from COVID-19 pandemic. The only way is that on how to live up to what we are required to do, how to continue with our day life, how to render our teaching and learning the services to our students so that they will be the future leader of our nation.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Awanis. So informative and very interesting presentation. Actually, we get many information about the VUCA era and Web 2.0 application. So Maybe for the audience, if you have the question, you just go through the Zoom chats and the YouTube live streaming. And also, actually, I just informed from the conference committees that our conference have been attended by our respected guys who are currently in our Dean room. So let me thank you and welcome to the Mr. Gunawan from the Bank of Indonesia. And then Mrs. Malsi from the BNI, Mr. Aldo from the BPBD West Sumatra, and then Mr. Henry from the Bapeda Padang. Thank you very much and welcome. Hope you enjoy the conference. Well, the audience, ladies and gentlemen, now we proceed for the second speaker. Our second speaker is the Associate Professor Dr. Elamer. Okay, Assalamualaikum, Dr. Ahmed.
Waalaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
So, in your place, still so really morning, really morning. So how was in UK in this currently pandemic situation?
So currently the situation is far better. So I think the government handled it very well in the last stage. So most of people are vaccinated now, and the number of cases is compared to previous period. So yeah.
Okay, we know everyone have infected by the pandemic situation. Well, let me proceed to your excellent profile first before your presentation. Okay, Dr. Ahmed joined the Brunel University, England as the Associate Professor in Accounting in April 2019. Prior to joining the Brunel Business School, Ahmed worked at the Bradford University School of the Management and the University of the West of Scotland, England. He has completed his PhD in accounting from the University of Huddersfield with the particular focus on the risk disclosure, multi-level governance, credit ratings, and bank performance. And Dr. Ahmed is also a member of the Accounting and Auditing Research Group at the Brunel University, London. Well, here we can see his excellent profile. And just to remind, Doctor, you have only 25 minutes to present the papers. So now we call upon Associate Professor Dr. Ahmed to deliver your presentation. So time is yours.
Can you see my screen?
Yes, sir.
So first of all, I would like to thank you all for your time, and specifically, I would like to thank the conference organizers for inviting me. So today I will present mainly on extended audit reporting, and this is a new standard in auditing profession which focus on presenting the auditor judgment. And so as you know, that COVID-19 pandemic affected all industries and professions, and then accounting auditors are facing new and unique challenges performing their audits during the current pandemic. Also, due to this pandemic, uncertainty and unpredictability may create many risks of material misstatements that are new or intensified in the current circumstances. So in auditing, when we are planning, auditors in the last year may not have considered these risks, or may have considered identified risks differently at the beginning of auditing during the beginning of the year. In my research, we have a large project on extended audit reporting. We published one paper. We have many papers under review, and also many working papers now. And I think our conference attendance may benefit from this topic, as it is new, and there is also, it is a hot topic now in accounting. So there is many ideas that can be applied in Indonesia or other countries. So regarding to the agenda, I will introduce the new auditing standards about reporting, literature review in this area, and will focus more on the current idea, which is the consequences of extended audit reporting. After that, I will go through our sample and our model, and present our empirical results, and finally we will conclude. So as you know, in accounting, in auditing profession, there was long criticism on audit report, because audit report, the traditional audit report, was very standardized. It is pass or fail report, and there was it lacks enough details about audit process and the professional judgment. And due to the global financial crisis, many organizations has stressed the need to disclose more information to auditing clients. Also, many organizations like IESP and FRC and PACO, most of accounting and auditing organizations worldwide have made substantial or significant changes in auditing standards due to this criticism. One of the main changes was the new standard, which is International Standard on Auditing 701, which mainly focus on communicating key audit matters in the independent auditor's report. UK was leading this project, and it was applied first in the UK in 2013, and after that the European applied it in 2016 and worldwide as well. USA was a little bit late, and they applied it in 2018 and 19. Regarding to this standard, they mandate disclosing additional information about risk of material misstatements, and they impose a new requirements which raise many questions in academia and in profession as well about the value and the behavior of users of financial statements, and how this reporting could affect them. So this standard, ISA 701, here auditors' responsibility to communicate or disclose key audit matters, and some standards call it risk of material misstatements in the auditor report. So here auditors, instead of just he said that it is qualified or unqualified report, pass or fail reports, they disclose more client-specific information related to risks of material misstatement, which had a significant effect on the audit, the application of materiality, and also the scope of the audit as well. So why we disclose or communicating the key audit matters? It is very important for many reasons, and those reasons come from the regulators worldwide. So one of the objectives is to enhance the communicative value of the auditor report, give more details about the auditing process and so on. Also to provide more transparency about the audit itself that was performed. Third, also to assist the users in understanding those matters, the key audit matters, that auditors see them as most significant in their process. And finally, to assist users in understanding the entity and the areas of significant management judgment. Regarding to the current pandemic, the last year, 2020, audit analytics, this is one of the main providers of audit information. Audit analytics has observed the following trends in European audit opinions, which refer to COVID-19. So there was 171 report referred to COVID-19 and its impact on going concern modifications. 289 mentioned in emphasis of matter paragraphs, and finally there was 574 key audit matters related to COVID-19, which show how COVID-19 affect auditing in general and its outcomes. So literature review about expanded audit reporting. As I said at the beginning, this is still new topic with a lot of ideas for researchers, and the good news, there is many mixed results there, so you can also add more evidence from your country. So at the beginning, because the lack of data, there was many experimental studies, and most of researchers using experimental studies show positive impact of the new standard. So, for example, DOCSI 2014 shows that disclosing key audit matters help to in enhancing the user's perception of the quality of financial report. Also, Christensen et al. 2014 shows that investors perceive value in the expanded audit reporting or extended audit reporting, and also react negatively when they receive a key audit matters section in the audit report. So when there is more key audit matters or risks of material misstatements, they perceive this negatively, and this may affect share prices and firm value and so on. Also, another study shows that disclosure of key audit matters bring investors' attention to related management disclosure. To go through this also, when we speak about extended audit reporting, as I said, then the first standard was 2013, so still there is limited and mixed results when we speak about empirical or archival studies. So, for example, Lee et al. 2019 and Reed et al. 2019 shows a significant negative impact on managers' opportunistic behavior. Bedard et al. 2019 and Guterres 2018 found that extended audit reporting has no impact or insignificant impact on auditors' quality. Also, they found that there is no significant impact on of market reaction to expanded audit report. This is very interesting results, and mainly we can explain this because they use short period time, so maximum 3 years after adoption of the extended audit reporting. So we would expect that if we increase this time period, might yield different results. Related to the second part of our study, how expanded audit reporting may affect cost of debt. Many studies found that there is relation between auditing and the cost of debt. So, for example, there was many studies found a negative association between high quality, transparent financial reports and the cost of debt. Also, some other studies found that audit quality has a significant impact on the cost of debt. So high quality audits can help in facilitating debt contracting and help companies to get less or lower cost of debt. Big Four auditors also are associated with lower cost of debt. And finally, based on this literature, we can find that external auditor report reduces information asymmetry by increasing the monitoring of management actions. So research motivation. So as I presented earlier, there is extensive changes and regulatory initiatives like FRC report in 2017 shows that investors and the creditors welcome more involvement from auditors and more disclosure. They will react to this disclosure if they value the information disclosed. And also in this report, it shows that the new information in the auditor report reduce information asymmetry and may affect the pricing of debt capital. Also, there is empirical and theoretical gaps in previous literature. So most of previous literature, as I showed, there is mixed or very rare results. Also, to our best of knowledge, this study is one of the first studies to examine the impact of extended audit reporting on creditors' decisions. So regarding to our hypothesis, first one is about if the adoption of the new standards can reduce cost of debt or not. So expanded audit reporting, as I mentioned, was applied in 2013. So we would like to find out whether after the adaptation this reduced cost of debt or not. Deng et al. 2016 outlined that higher financial reporting quality would also reduce uncertainty about future cash flow. So we conjecture that if the financial reporting quality may reduce the uncertainty, so also auditor report or auditor disclosure may also reduce this uncertainty. So we hypothesize that the introduction of expanded reporting is associated with lower cost of debt. The second one, the second part of our study is post-adaptation. So the first hypothesis was before and after. We compare two periods. The second one is after the adaptation. Is the level of key audit matters, number of key audit matters, or the length of this disclosure could affect cost of debt or not? So we have two hypotheses here. The first one is cost of debt is positively associated with the number of risks of material misstatements. And the second one, instead of number, we measure the impact of length of risk material misstatements. The last hypothesis is about the tone of the disclosure. So expanded audit reporting tone and the cost of debt. And here we measure negative words, positive words, and uncertainty words. And we look at the net tone. So positive words minus negative and uncertainty tones. Whether this tone could affect the cost of debt. So if there is more positive words in the report itself, is this would affect the pricing of debt or not? Okay. And the last hypothesis is extended audit reporting tone is significantly associated with cost of debt. So regarding to our data and our sample, so our data is before and post adaptation. So we take from 2010 to 2017, and we use all non-financial FTSE companies. And our final sample consists of 302 companies with 2,079 firm year observation from 2010 to 2017. We collected our data from annual reports, data stream, and the FAME databases. And as you can see here, our main variable is cost of debt. Okay, this is our dependent variable. And we look at the first stage, the adaptation of extended audit reporting, whether the adaptation affects cost of debt in general or not. And after that, in the post-adaptation period, we look at the characteristics of our disclosure, number of key audit matters, length of key audit matters, and the tone of the key audit matters, and how these characteristics would affect cost of debt. So when we go to our results, descriptive stats, we found that key audit matters range between 1 and 10 key audit matters. Length, we have here the length, natural logarithm of length, it's between 2.4 and 6.8. The tone, as you can see, the average is minus 0.03. This means that most of the reports is related to negative or uncertainty words. It is more than positive. Okay, and as you can see, the minimum is minus and the maximum is minus as well. So this means that all audit reports are more related to negative or uncertainty words. You can see also that FTSE all shares mostly is audited by Big Four companies. 97% of those companies are audited by Big Four, and around 13% of our sample achieve loss. So if we go to our empirical results, so at the first stage we use OLS regression with firm and year industry fixed effects, and you can see here in the first hypothesis, which before and after the adaptation, that there is negative relation between expanded audit reporting and the cost of debt. What is the meaning of this? This means that the introduction of this standard has reduced the cost of debt in the market. So this means it reduces uncertainty, shows more valued information to our creditors, which lead to reduction in cost of debt. If we focus on post-adaptation, the characteristics of the new report, we found that number of key audit matters has a positive impact on cost of debt. This means when number of risks increase, the cost of debt will increase. Okay, so also there is value of disclosing more risks. Length as well is very important characteristics and has positive and significant impact on cost of debt. And finally, the tone, we found negative relation. What is the meaning of this? So if there is, because this net positive tone, so this means if positive tone increase, cost of debt will decrease. Okay. So this is our main results. We added more additional results and robustness analysis. So we compare high and low key audit matters, and we found that in high key audit matters sample, we found that length and tone has more significant impact on cost of debt. In the companies that has opportunistic behavior measured by earning management, we found that when there is high opportunistic behavior, key audit matters length and tone has more impact. Some argues that might be key audit matters length and tone may not be changed over years. So in the next step, we measure abnormal key audit matters, abnormal tone, and abnormal length. Okay, and we regress the abnormal characteristics on cost of debt, and we found also that abnormal characteristics has significant impact on cost of debt as expected. Finally, to deal with indigeneity issue, there is a lot of techniques. One of them is difference in difference. In the first model, we collect data. So the adaptation in the UK was in FTSE market, but in small and medium companies didn't apply extended audit reporting. So we collect another sample in the same market who didn't apply extended audit reporting to check if the mean variable of interest, which is extended audit reporting adaptation, has impact on cost of debt and or not. And we found that this is our main focus here: adaptation times post the adapted companies times post adaptation. And we found that companies who adopt key audit matters or extended audit reporting has the cost of debt of those companies has been reduced. Okay, this one model. The second model is omitted variables. We added additional variables like audit committee variables, and our results almost the same. For our both models, for adaptation and for post adaptation. The final model was two-stage least square to check if there is exogenous variables that may affect our model, and again the same results was yielded. We add another variable instead of cost of debt, which is access to debt, but also the results is also promising. We has net positive tone, which is positive minus negative minus uncertainty. So in additional analysis, we made a regression for each tone: negative tone, uncertainty tone, and the positive tone. And as you can see here, the most important words or tone is negative tone and uncertainty tone. Both of them has positive impact on cost of debt. So if you have more negative tone or more uncertainty tone, this will affect cost of debt and increase debt. Finally, we conclude by our main conclusion. First, our paper concludes that extended audit reporting can reduce information gap between auditors and the financial report users, and specifically debt providers. We found that extended audit disclosure or reporting is negatively related to cost of debt. Number and the length of risk of material misstatements are positively related to cost of debt. And finally, the auditor tone in their report is significantly related to the firm cost of debt. Implication. So first of all, policy implication. As you can see, there is impact on users after adaptation of extended audit reporting. So we suggest that other policymakers in other countries would develop auditor disclosure and also improve it. Also, stakeholders and research, as I mentioned, there is mixed results. So researchers can also add more evidence in this area. And also we found that extended reporting communicate relevant information. So you can examine other implications like such as the impact on firm value, share price, volatility, and so on. And finally, audit firms should we inform them that audit reports tone matters and would affect the investor's perception. Finally, our limitation is we use textual analysis. So some other researchers can use manual textual analysis instead of automated textual analysis. In Dujanity, we made a lot of models to handle this issue. However, we can't eliminate it completely. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ahmed. Very interesting presentation, and we got a lot of information about the extended audit report. Well, now we proceed with the third speaker is Associate Professor Dr. James Hazelton. Hello, Dr. James, how are you?
Very well.
Well, thank you. Actually, what time is it in Sydney right now?
Sydney, it's 1:30 in the afternoon.
Oh, okay. So have you get lunch?
Not yet, but I had a late breakfast. So
yeah, I think you have finished the presentation first. Okay. Well, let me proceed to your briefly profile. Dr. James Hazelton joined the Macquarie University in 2001. Prior to his academic career, Dr. James was with the PricewaterhouseCoopers, where he worked in audit and risk management consulting in Sydney, London, and New York. Dr. James specializes in the business ethics and sustainability and has consulted research and taught extensively in these areas. He was a part of the team engaged by the NSW Office of Environment and Heritage to develop energy efficiency training for the accounting profession. His research areas are sustainability study, business and economic, and also social science. So here they briefly Dr. James' profile. Well, Dr. James, again, just to remind you only have 25 minutes to present your paper. So now we call upon Associate Professor Dr. James to deliver your presentation. Time is yours.
Thank you very much. Can everyone see my screen? Is that working? Yeah, great. Thank you. And thank you very much for the invitation to speak here today. Really appreciate the opportunity. So thanks you to the conference organizers, and thanks everybody for listening to my presentation. So what I would like to do today is give some reflections, which is not kind of a single paper, but a kind of overview of different projects that I've been involved in. And fortuitously, it actually brings together some of the aspects that have been touched on in the first two presentations that you've already seen, because what I want to talk about is digital learning and what some of the potential is in that space. And I also happen to teach auditing, so it's kind of a connection of both paper number 1 and number 2 that you've seen already today. So if I begin, as was noted in the introduction, my accounting career began kind of many years ago. I actually started with PricewaterhouseCoopers when I was 17 as a cadet, straight out of high school, and then studied part-time. And back in those days, the kind of image of auditors was, or of accountants rather, was something like something like this. So, here's the accountant preparing for battle. Here's the ecstasy of victory, and here's the agony of defeat. So accountants were, perceived as being fairly colorless kind of people, right? And the kind of work that was done was pretty mundane by many of the accounting profession. Of course, there's not all, but many. But what really revolutionized accounting and continues to revolutionize accounting, and of course many professions, is technology. Now when I started with the auditing firm, we were in groups of about 30 people, and each group had one computer between all 30 people, and you had to kind of reserve the computer to take it out to a client. And that screen in the middle, as you can see, was absolutely tiny. But what the computer had was a spreadsheet program. And even though it was tiny and it was a real pain to use, and we had the floppy disks and all the rest of it, those spreadsheet programs, revolutionized the way that accounting was done for many people, and took away much of the really mundane work that had previously been performed. And we can see that progression, continuing right through to the present. And of course, as in Dr. Ishaq's presentation, the COVID era has accelerated this process. And of course, here we are in a virtual environment, speaking to each other from different countries, which is amazing. So in terms of accounting, we've had this change in role from the bean counter, the back office, to the business advisor, to somebody who is integral to the decision making of an enterprise. And what that means is the skills that are required also are elevated. So from the kind of knowledge of how to book particular transactions and quite mechanical skills, kind of almost a rote learning, memorization approach, what's required now are much higher order skills in terms of things like analysis and communication. So if that's what's required in the workplace, the issue then is, how do we respond from an educational point of view? And education, of course, has traditionally been what's called the chalk and talk approach, where we've got kind of blackboards and people standing out the front, sometimes called the sage on the stage. The idea that there's the kind of all-knowing person who then communicates wisdom to an audience. And there's certainly a place for that, right? The traditional model of somebody who's an expert imparting knowledge to somebody who's not an expert is not something that we can completely abandon, right? That's not something that is negative in any way. But the question is that enough? And can we also supplement that kind of experience with something else? And so what I've been interested in for a few years now is what kind of alternatives could we give to this? And one of the most interesting, I think, is around games. And when I say games, I'm not talking about kind of games that you might ordinarily associate with sort of video games and so forth. I'm talking more about the kind of simulation, or that approach. And so a few years ago, I started to explore this in a bit more detail. And I actually took a couple of courses offered by our computer science department on games and digital learning. And so what I want to do is just briefly share a couple of three big ideas that I got out of doing those courses, and then a couple of very small examples. So three big ideas from the game science and the game literature. The first one is why do we think that games can offer something that traditional education may not offer as much of? And the first one is, of course, around interactivity. You know, the idea is that with a simulation, the user can choose different parameters and see how things work in totality. And the example here is the creation of the first calculator for the Apple Mac. And this is an interesting story because the engineer who was working on this calculator kept giving different design ideas to Steve Jobs, you know, who's, I'm sure you all know, the late founder of Apple. And apparently Steve Jobs kept rejecting them. It's like, no, I don't like the buttons, right? No, I don't like the font, right? No, I don't like the size, right? And the engineer got more and more frustrated with trying to get his idea accepted. And so eventually he thought, look, I'm not going to do that anymore. What I'll do is I'll produce like a calculator app that allows you to change the different parameters, right, as to how the calculator looks. And he gave the app to Steve, and Steve then spent, you know, 5 minutes, right, playing with the different sliders, and then came up with the idea and said, okay, this is it. So this is an example of like it's almost like a calculator simulator, right? Like the person was able to then change these different parameters to come up with the idea so that collectively they work and understand the whole process rather than one component of that process. So that's idea number one. Idea number two is if you ask people why they play games, right? They'll say that they're fun, right? But diving a little deeper into that, fun can mean many different things. And there's a few different papers that explore this, you know, different types of fun. Like, what does fun actually mean? And this is quite a well-known one of them, which is the 14 forms of fun. And as you can see there on the list, you know, there's a whole lot of different components there, which are basically about those different aspects which can be brought into an experience to make it enjoyable. And from an education point of view, there's a lot there to play with, right? From one point of view, we tend to prioritize the intellectual experience, which is a good thing. But you can see there's many other hooks that can be brought into an educational experience. The social side, the aesthetic side, right? Making things look good, right? Some kind of even physical activity, right? Getting people doing things and so on. And so game designers keep this broader sense of fun front of mind when they're designing game experiences. And that's something which I think is a useful one as well for considering educational experiences. And the third big idea is what's called the chocolate-coated broccoli problem. You might say, well, what on earth is this? Well, for some of us, we like broccoli, right? We think broccoli is rewarding, you know, it's full of nutrients and so forth. You know, we might like eating chocolate as well because that tastes good. But that doesn't necessarily mean that putting broccoli and chocolate together is a good idea. And so what this is trying to communicate is that not all things lend themselves to a gamified approach, right? We need to be a little critical or a little cautious as to what we use for games and what we think are good educational experiences, right? It's not a one-size-fits-all approach or a silver bullet. So how do we go about actually doing this in practice? And now, when we think about applying this kind of idea, there's many different approaches. And the first presentation, you mentioned the wide variety of tools which are available in a Web 2.0 and, you know, the wider kind of IT environment now. So how do we get from kind of what we're comfortable to where we might want to go from a game point of view? And I think it's helpful to just reflect for a moment on the ubiquity of PowerPoint now. You know, when I started my career, if you wanted to do a slide, right, if you wanted to present a slide, and I promise this is true, you went to the graphics department, right? Because it was the graphics department that knew how to produce slides. And as a normal person, you know, that was considered to be like, you need to have a kind of graphics training to do that, right? Of course, now we would never dream of bothering a graphics department to produce an ordinary presentation, right? But because it turns out it's not so hard, right? But still quite hard to do well, right? And I'm sure, you know, graphics designers would look at a lot of PowerPoint presentations and, you know, throw their hands up. But nevertheless, this is now a pretty common skill. When we look at trying to produce games, though, for educational purposes, you know, the kind of game design software I put on the slide, the Unreal Engine. Some of you may know that the game Fortnite, one of the most successful games kind of in the modern era, is built on the Unreal Engine, and you can also use the engine directly to build games. Many AAA games are built using Unreal, but it's pretty complicated, right? And there's many other alternatives, of course, Unity and an open source version called Godot and so on. But they all require, you know, a fairly, I guess, a keen interest and some experience in terms of graphics programming and so on to use them. So this raises the question: if we think that having games are a good idea, or at least some kind of interactive experience is a good idea, but we don't want to go to the trouble and effort and time and cost of learning an actual game engine, you know, how can we do that? And so one of the areas that I've been experimenting with is using the humble spreadsheet, right? What can we do with Excel, and we could probably do with Google Sheets and so forth as well, but what could we do there that would give us some of the benefits without having some of those costs? So I wanted to show you just a couple of simple examples here. So I'm going to stop sharing that screen, and I'm going to share a different screen, which is this one. Okay, so this is something that very simple, okay, but in relation to audit risk. So what you can hopefully now see is the segment of the textbook that we use, which happens to be the GAIN SIMNET textbook, which deals with audit risk. And for those of you that aren't familiar with the concept of audit risk, basically you can see this matrix that on the left, what the auditor is supposed to do is assess how risky an account balance is, kind of per se. So if there's high degrees of judgment or complexity, then it'll be high risk. Then the auditor is supposed to assess control risk. How likely are the controls to detect a material misstatement in that account balance? And then based on the determination of inherent and control risk, that gives the level of detection risk, which is the risk that the audit procedures won't detect a material misstatement. And the idea is that those three things together determine the level of audit risk, which must be at an acceptably low level. Right? Now, if you kind of find that a little bit hard to get your head around, you're certainly not alone, right? And so this is something that many students struggle with, right? Takes quite a bit of kind of thinking and application to try to understand how all of these aspects fit together. So here's another approach to learning this idea using an Excel. I mean, simulation is a bit grand a term to use, but an Excel approach. So you can see here, what you can do is go to a particular level of inherent risk. And let's say we say inherent risk is high, then the spreadsheet will then tell you, okay, well, what does that actually mean? You know, give some examples, and how's that going to impact on the audit testing which is undertaken? And then do the same in terms of control risk. So let's say we call this medium. It gives you an explanation as to how that works. And let's say now we also say, well, detection risk is medium. It tells us about detection risk, but it also tells us that the interaction between these different types of risks isn't acceptable. Okay, actually our inherent risk is too high, right? And so that means actually we need to reduce our level of detection risk to the low, and then we get the acceptable level of audit risk. Now, the advantage of this approach then is that students can, you know, play around with these different aspects to see what will actually happen in terms of changing these different risk levels. You know, if we change this one, actually we're doing too much work, right? Our audit risk is too low, which means our audit is inefficient. Now, the advantage of doing this in something like Excel is that it's actually very simple to construct. basically all of this is done using what's called these if-then statements, which essentially says, well, for this cell, if you can see the formula up here, right, depending on what the word is that's in the top cell, then copy in the data that's in the data sheet. So you can see in this sheet, we've got what are the different options here. And basically then what happens is, depending on what word is in this cell, is which of these cells then gets copied into the cell in the main worksheet. And so to set up from a educator point of view, you know, this doesn't require a lot of high-level coding language or anything like that, which is one advantage. And the other advantage is that it's actually very easy to change. You know, if you find that there's a mistake in there, you know, you send it to somebody to review, they want to update it, then all that has to happen is that you go into the data sheet, make the adjustments rather, and then that will automatically be updated in, you know, the main page. So that's a very simple example, but the feedback that we've had is that students find this a lot easier to deal with, and a lot easier to understand this concept of the risk matrix than, you know, just reading about it in this format, right, where they can't do anything. There's nothing to interact with. So that's the first example. And now I'd like to show you a slightly more complex example. And this is one where we were funded by the City of Sydney to develop a game or a simulation which would help to reduce energy costs in buildings. And as was noted in the introduction, I've done a little bit of work on energy efficiency. And one of the issues around energy efficiency is that it can be difficult to reach some people to help them to understand what kind of actions they can take to improve the energy efficiency in their building. So again, this is completely built in Excel, right? And there's uses essentially the same techniques as the previous example, as a series of if-then statements. But what the user then does in this example is there's a few different tabs down the bottom here. They go to an inventory where they see the overview of the building, and these are just images that have been cut and pasted into the worksheet. But you can see here, you can basically hide and show these different aspects of energy. These are the energy using devices on the floor. And then what happens, there's a dashboard. So at the moment, we haven't had any action yet. So it's just showing the baseline energy use of $3,500 a month. The user then goes to the first month, and you can see here there's a few different actions that they can choose from to improve energy efficiency. So let's just pick a couple at random here. Like a standby on computers, and we'll run the air conditioning in economy mode. We say commit, yes. And then it says, you know, go to the dashboard. So again, that message is just an if-then statement, exactly the same as the audit matrix, right? If it says yes, then print this message. We go to our dashboard, and now it's updated the dashboard for our first round of energy savings. It's extrapolated that to saving. We're up to $25,000 a year for this saving over a 5-year period. We go to month 2. You can see we've now got some more choices. We've actually got a budget now, which we can apply. We've got a few more options, which require some funding to use. But let's just again pick a few kind of at random here, and then we'll just commit to those. And our dashboard now is updated for our next month, and we've got one more month to do. So, and you can see here our possible actions is updated. So the options that we've chosen don't appear on this list. So we put in our last 3. And what else have we got left? Click to that. And so here's our dashboard, right? So we've made some substantial savings. The last month wasn't wasn't as good as the first month, but that's how it goes. We can go now to our final feedback tab, and the final feedback, gives us a list of all of the actions that we took, and it tells us, well, we had 8 choices over the 2 months. It was 5 of the top 8 were the ones that we chose, and so it then gives us a list of all of our choices, and then tells us were those choices in the top 8, and then this is kind of like the answer sheet, right? Like tells us what all of the best answers were, or all of the best options were rather, what they cost and what the overall savings of those actions was. You can see some of these were negative savings. They were actually poor choices. And so the idea of this simulation is that it allows people to actually make mistakes. But of course, the mistakes that you make in the simulation have no real world consequence. So it's a good learning outcome. And the approach then here is that people get to act first and then receive feedback. And that feedback is pretty instantaneous, right? You don't have to submit an assignment, wait for somebody to come back to you a week or 2 weeks later. You just press the button and it will give you that feedback to tell you how you're going. So let me get out of that, and just to finish off, then. So what do we kind of get out of this, right? Well, overall, the conclusion is that this approach to games can facilitate deeper learning. There's a whole bunch of literature that says that experiential learning can give a kind of deeper resonance than more traditional kind of one way or the chalk and talk approach. So by allowing students to interact with the information, that can generate new possibilities and better learning outcomes. The problem, of course, is that creating these experiences can be difficult and expensive, and we can get kind of locked in, and so changing them can be difficult as well. And so my experience and what we and some colleagues and I are working on at the moment is to say, well, these spreadsheet-based simulations, yes, they're not as flash as something which is built in a dedicated game engine, but nevertheless, they can be good enough to give a great experience to the users, and they can be changed easily, which is another big plus. And the other thing is that they then can also serve as a very useful blueprint for developing a more serious tool, or a tool built in a dedicated engine. And in fact, that City of Sydney tool, we've got a design document for that at the moment. And the plan is then to hopefully get some more funding, building on what we already have, to then take that as well to a dedicated app. So in that way, we would have the kind of simple spreadsheet version and then also a more sophisticated version. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. James. So interesting presentation, and I hope no audience asks, oh, how many broccoli and chocolate should be buy, or when the Pokemon will come to the Sydney. Is that it? Well, thank you very much, Dr. James. Now we proceed for the last speakers, but not the end of the conference. The speaker is Associate Professor Dr. Samuel. Assalamualaikum. Hello, Dr. Samuel. How are you?
Waalaikumsalam. I'm good. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Let me explain briefly your profile to the audience. Dr. Samuel is an associate professor in Economic Faculty, Universitas Negeri Padang. He has joined the program I'm Here, Indonesia Managing Higher Education for Relevance and Efficiency as coordinator program, which is funded by the World Bank under the Indonesian Ministry of Education. He was also the chairman of the Central Cooperation at Universitas Negeri Padang. Besides, he also conducted important roles in the advance of the faculty economic having served as coordinator of the Accounting and Economic Education program. Her research area are economic education, accounting, management education, and entrepreneurship. Well, here just briefly his excellent profile. And just to remind Dr. Samuel, you have only 25 minutes to present. And okay, now we call upon Associate Professor Dr. Samuel to deliver your presentation. Time is yours.
Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Alhamdulillahirabbil alamin wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulullah Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Honorable Rector UNP, Prof. Ganapri PhD, Vice Rector, first, second, third, and fourth. Dear all faculty of UNP, Dean of FAUNP, Associate Professor Dr. Idris MSE, and Vice Dean, first, second, third. Director of Postgraduate School, Professor Yeni Rozimela, MAD, PhD, all invited speaker, presenter, all and participant on this PICEEBA virtual seminar. The committee and PICEEBA FAUNP. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Thank you for inviting me as a speaker in this conference. In this occasion, I would like to share my small research and experience dealing with teaching and learning process in COVID-19 period that has been now we call it the new normal. I entitled my presentation, as you saw now in my presentation, New Normal, Opportunity and Challenge in the Learning Process During COVID-19 Pandemic. Before I continue this speech, please allow me to sometimes switch from English to Indonesia language and vice versa, because according to me, more the participant in Indonesia. Okay, I begin now. Let me tell you a brief about history of ASP UNP. ASP UNP is the oldest department in UNP. It was established in 1955. With some departments were Indonesian, history, economic, English, science, and biology. At Batu Sangkar, West Sumatra, Indonesia. From then, it has changed 5 times, and its last one now, its name is ASP at FAUNP. Ladies and gentlemen, now I would like to inform you a little bit why I do this activity, this research. We all know that the COVID-19 pandemic was first identified in December 19 in Wuhan, China. Then it's declared as a pandemic on March 2020. The pandemic has resulted in a significant global social and economic disruption. The pandemic influenced all sectors of life, such as economic, education, politics, social, recreation area, healthcare, and you can name them. All the sectors have to run out the solution for the pandemic. In education, for instance, we are pushed to adjust our way of teaching from classical to online or virtual. This will bring about many other changes. This change open opportunity to improve the quality of education itself. And of course, as you know, a challenge and difficulty are unavoidable. This I could like to talk about today. So this the rationale, this is what I say just now. The first one, pandemic. The second one is transition of learning process. And then we have to done it in applying the health protocol. I would like to tell you a brief about implementation of 5 health protocol effective in this to run our teaching learning process activity in Indonesia, especially in UNP, in our department. We divide it into 3 semester. Semester June, July, we have 3 protocol. They are hand washing, putting on mask, maintaining distance. And this time we do activity the half semester with offline and half semester with online. The second semester or semester July December 2020, there is a 4 protocol. The plus one more stay away from the crowd. And then in this time, we do a class full online classes, synchronized and synchronized. In semester 3, in next June and January and June 2020, there are 5 altogether. We add one more in reducing mobility. In Indonesia, we call it as 5M. 5M. Many lecturers have not sacrificed with the result of this one, because we just use the we use the what we do before, synchronized meeting and unsynchronized. But most the synchronized meeting we use the virtual meeting loop with Zoom. This might be because the experience in July-December 2020 seem to be unable to comprehend the material, then had difficulty to study by themselves. The students seem to be unable to comprehend the material. They had difficulty to study. So they feel lonely. This motivated me to find out the student view of experience learning during the pandemic. So I try to find out all the 3 semesters. I hope the result what I have to the result that is some extent valuable input for learning improve the future. Now, this all of them we call this new normal. Learning activity should be done obeying the protocol above. Based on what I said before, this I said the research problem. How the learning process activity conducted in COVID-19 pandemic in new normal at ASP at UNP to read the aim. Underlying principle, we use the PACAM BSC and BSC for PACAM to do this research and also to do the analysis of the research. PACAM is a learning process in issues learning experience. This is abbreviation in use in Indonesia. Yes, in Indonesia. PACAM is developed before the name is PACAM, developed in the year 2000, and then developed in the year 2013, we become PACAM. For the term, you might have unable to figure out the purpose of the study. Using the strategy, are expected to design the teaching and learning activity that reflect the component of PICEEBA. So this PICEEBA, this abbreviation: P for practice, A for active, I for innovative, K which change with seeing, creative, E for effective, and M for fun in learning process. To assess what you have to do, I use the balance scorecards modified. Modified is to describe the analysis and the result. It consists of 4 perspectives: financial perspective, customer perspective, internal perspective, process, and learning and growth. BSC, now we translate, we modified into 10 attributes. They are material, book, method, discussion, task, feedback, efficiency, competency. All attributes become indicator of PICEEBA in the learning process. So this is the model. Ladies and gentlemen, to do this survey, we did an activity in survey in our department, my SP department. Activity took place in some classroom session in January, June 2020, July, December 2020, January, June 2021. Sample was selected by judgment sampling. This usually we call sometimes the judgmental sampling. By the technique at distribute sample all the population, we send the questionnaire to all the students. For this semester, for 3 semesters, there are 2,227. The complete one, the return, this we analyze. There are 140. And then the data were collecting using interval measurement record. The questionnaire developed the 10 indicators that we use the PICEEBA and BSC and PICEEBA. And then the data we analyze using the modified BSC. And the result we do descriptive. In order, our Indonesian participant know this model is used a little bit Indonesia. Survei ini saya lakukan di jurusan saya ketika saya mengajar pada semester Januari, Juni, Juli, Desember, dan Januari, Juli 2021. Berarti saya lakukan ini selama 3 semester. Jadi datanya, dan saya menggunakan PICEEBA sebagai dasar pembuatannya dan menggabungkan dengan BSC dalam bentuk analisisnya. In the first semester, I mean the January-June semester, we have 2 kind of activity. We do the 2 kind of activity. The first one is classical for each meeting, and then the other one online for another one. The classical classroom meeting activity we transfer to online using the lesson plan. We call Indonesia RPS. Rencana pembelajaran semester that has been prepared in the beginning of semester. The result what we have got for this semester, I just say in GM, green mean, online and offline, but I transfer to percentage online. This what the result I just depict on graph. This is the model. In practice, just the student perspective, the quality of learning process by student perspective. This only the blue for online and the red for offline. The orange is for average. So this all of the attribute that's just in activity, all of them are this online less than offline. This the first semester. I mean this January June 2020. Based on January the result of January June 2020, I continue the activity for the next semester. And then what we do in the first semester, we do in the second semester, but we plus with 2 point more. This 2 plus teaching 2 and more is based on discussion we had done before, based on the result. Teaching media such as PPT and exercise a problem sent to student. Decision a discussion were done if the student need and more about the material. The result is like this. The result is the online become increased, then but the offline this almost steady, almost steady. And then the end the result is 65 from 52 for online, 83 for 25, 27 for online. And then for the next semester, we use this data to continue it, but we add the other one. The number 2, number 3, we still uses, but the discussion were every class meeting, every time we do with Zoom. And then the material we use another one, we send ebook to student in order what the material we make in PPT, the student know exactly the same thing. The result is like this. The average is increased again, become 75.07 for online, and offline become 82 for this. Almost this increase almost. The result is like this one. This the result as a whole. This we can see in the picture, and then we can combine all together. This we can combine this online, then another one offline. We see the online there is an increase significantly, but the offline is not increased. Yeah, it almost steady. This the result for all items. In average, we can see in the total. Yeah, this in average. So the increase of online semester January 2020 is 66, become 65, increase 5 point, and then from 60 December increase 7 point. And then it means but online only increase 1 point, and then the other one is 2 point. This we can say that it means the increasing online is better than offline. This we can the picture like this. What the conclusion of this activity? Classical learning activity will better than online on this all aspect. ICAM strategy. Online learning become better gradually whenever learning activity were engaging. Significant improvement was evident through online learning whenever students were engaged. And then student problem online learning were unstable internet connection, limited internet coverage, limitation of data, insufficient credit balance, not sufficient hardware to access the teaching material, low English language ability. So based on the conclusion, I make a kind of suggestion. Use split classroom strategy and blended learning for the next semester. Synchronous meeting and use for discussion, while theoretical material are read by students independently. Students are the subject and the lecturer become facilitator. The lesson, students need to prepare instructional media such as video or PPT with audio explanation, and we send to the student. The last one, what I say before, what I had in this activity, this idea I would like to propose based on this study can be depicted on this picture. A learning activity by PICEEBA and the SC strategy model. The first thing, we have to make the goal or the aim or the objective. Based on the goal and the aim objective, we plan what the learning process we have to do. We have to use the flip and blended strategy. Flip, it means we give the activities for students to do what they want to do, what the end of activity. And then we have to blend it to do the activity. Teacher or lecturer, just manager of learning. And student, this interaction between teacher and student just like this. Maybe then is yes, but the main point is activity process. And then teaching aid, we have to prepare by lecturer, by teacher, and also material to aid the activity of learning and to the goal. And then any institution have helped to reach the goal. Parent, society, government, school, and others. At last, the continuous improvement learning process should do it. So every day, every time, we have to do what we have to say. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I hope this small reset will be helpful, and I will have if you have any question and comment, I'm happy to answer. Thank you very much. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you very much for Associate Professor Dr. Samuel. So interesting and informative presentation. And also thank you for all of the great speakers today. Since we cannot sit in and stay together in this room, so you just need to entertain yourself. Please have a cup of tea by your own self. Okay, so now we are going to begin the answer the question submitted during the presentation. Okay, here we can find the question. The first session, we have collect 4 questions from the various universities that addressing to each speakers. The first question is from the Nada Rizky Maharani from the UPYPTK Padang. And this question addressed to Associate Professor Dr. Awanis Ishaq. The question is, VUCA era, where educator must facilitate student collaboration. Could you share us the suitable learning strategy that we can apply to make it real? And then the second question come from the Henry Agustin from the Universitas Negeri Padang, addressed to Associate Professor Dr. Ahmed. His question is, in your opinions, is the game's based learning most suitable to the more technical? In example, introduction on advanced accounting, or the more conceptual subject? In example, accounting theory, management control system. The third question from the Nurul, Universitas Negeri Padang, addressed to Dr. James. The question is, cultivating students' problem-solving ability become the priority in accounting course. What are your suggestions on reforming accounting course to achieve the skill? And the last question comes from Alif Ananda from the STYKBP Padang, addressed to Associate Professor Dr. Samuel. The question is, how to assess students' competence for non-cognitive aspect in the online learning during the COVID-19 pandemic. So for the speakers, we will proceed for the first question addressing to Dr. Awanis. Time is yours.
Thank you, Nada Rizky Maharani. You asked the question where the educator must facilitate students' collaboration. You share to us the suitable learning strategy where they can apply for the real one. Okay, basically what we have done in UUM was in our school of business, collaborative learning, especially we have we have to follow the guideline of MQA, Malaysian Qualification Agency. They have few skills and competency for the students, so that they have to meet these particular skills, and then we also have to measure them. Skills such as knowledge, cognitive skills, functions, work skills, such as practical skill, interpersonal, communication, digital, numeracy, leadership, autonomy, responsibility, personal and entrepreneurial skill, ethics, and professional skill. So when you talk about collaborative learning, actually it involves all these skills. So usually what we do is that through using the web 2.0, usually what we have previously before we are in this particular situation, we have subjects like that looks at community engagement subjects, community engagement, whereby the students have to go to the community and try to learn in terms of what that they can do, what they can help the community in terms of the necessity they have. So in that particular situation, they went to the particular community, they learn in terms of their businesses, in terms of what they are doing, and they have to interview the people there on what are the things that they can help the community. So after that, they have to come back and we have a discussion on what sort of things that we can do. Usually we have certain digital application. This subject is called management information system. That the students need to do some they have to design or they have to develop an application for that particular person, the community. And in other circumstances also, we have other what we call it as also is a community service, community engagement in human resource, whereby they have to go and have the real experience in anywhere part of the world if they will be called by this particular community, and they will stay with that particular community and they will try on how to help this community. So going back from the previous way of how we teach, how we try to get the students engaged, back to the web 2.0. Actually, it was very, very sad, and we are quite dumbfounded when we are in this situation, because some of the things, the subjects or the courses that we have to teach, we have to meet the requirement of the MQA. So instead of going facing them, go to see whatever at that particular place, we have something like everything must be done online. So the concept is still the same, it's online, but this is more like what the fourth speaker said. They have to combine together in terms of the experiential learning, blended learning and everything, and they will have meetings with the community online. Okay, they have everything with the community online. The community will tell them the problem online, and this is what they do. So being this, it must be quite interactive as per se, as per se with the community. So what we did was in terms of the strategy, the learning strategy, this is more still towards experiential learning, but using the application. But the application is not so much in terms of the application without meeting up the community, but it's more towards facing the community, what they need and everything. Okay, thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Awanis. So informative answer. I have the person who asked get the clear answer. Actually, we are apologize for the misplaced the question that before I explain. Actually, that question proposed to the Dr. Ahmed and placed to the Dr. James. So here the correct one. The second question from the Henry Agustin, and the question is, in your opinions, is the game-based learning more suitable to the more technical and the more conceptual subject? Actually, this question addressed to Dr. James. Okay, so Dr. James, time is yours.
Thank you, and a great question. Look, I think finding the balance between what would make a good environment for a game is challenging. But for me, I think there's two things that are probably the most useful to keep in mind, especially for the sorts of applications that I was showing. The first one is that there's a right answer. So, I used to teach ethics as well. And for ethics, of course, we're talking about, different perspectives. And so, ethics doesn't really lend itself to that kind of approach. You can certainly do games with an ethical dimension to them, but the sort of Excel-based, simulation, ethics isn't quite as good or quite as kind of natural as an application. So I think number one, a right answer. And number two, I would say, having multiple variables. So if there's a right answer, which depends on one thing, well, you can do it, from a kind of multiple choice question or something like that. You don't need a game, but the audit risk matrix was a good example, because in order to get the right answer there, it actually depends on three different things, right? You've got to get, the inherent risk, the control risk, and the detection risk at the right levels to get that right answer. And therefore, anything where you've got multiple variables that interact, I think that's the kind of thing which really lends itself to a game-based environment. And that may be, more conceptual or more technical. So I don't think it's not so much whether it's technical or conceptual. It's, is there a right answer, and are there multiple variables that determine that answer?
Well, thank you very much for Dr. James for your answering. It's a clear answer, and I hope everyone hearing understand your explanation. Well, now we proceed with the third question. Come from the Nurul from the Universitas Negeri Padang. The question is, cultivating students' problem-solving ability become today priority in accounting course. What are your suggestions on reforming accounting course to achieve the skills? So this question addressing to the Dr. James also. Oh, so in this session you have so many fans, so you need to give more effort answer. Well, Dr. James, it's your time.
Okay, thank you. And another great question. So firstly, I completely agree with the premise of the question that we need to improve the problem-solving ability of accountants. I think that's an excellent point. In terms of how do we do that, again, challenging. All I can offer is how I've approached that. And essentially what it boils down to is trying to create an actual problem for students to solve. And so, for example, I've just run a course on auditing, and the mid-semester case study was that students were put in the situation where they were part of an audit firm, excuse me, and the idea was that the audit firm was trying to expand their business, and so they were looking at firms within the Australian Stock Exchange, listed companies, and the task was to look at those companies and see whether they would be a potential audit client for this fictitious firm. And in order to make that assessment, they had to look at what the key audit matters were, how well that firm fit the industry experience of this fictitious audit firm, and what the business risks of that entity might be. So the idea was that they had to put themselves in the frame of mind of that firm. So so that's what I've sought to do, is basically try to give students real problems, even though, obviously we can't kind of let them loose. The ideal solution is that they're actually working for a firm, or it's some kind of an internship process. But certainly we have struggled to do that, when we've got 500 students or 1,000 students, and I'm sure many of you are working in institutions with even more than that. So the job placement, I think, is the ideal answer, but sometimes not a pragmatic answer. And so the closer we can get to that, I think the better. And that certainly does, I think, help students to start to understand or start to apply their knowledge to solving real world problems rather than just kind of textbook examples.
Okay, well, thank you very much for Dr. James for the great explanation. Well, now we proceed to the last question in this session. Come from Alif Ananda from the STA KBP. This question is addressing for the Associate Professor Dr. Samuel. The question is how to assess student competence for non-cognitive aspect in the online learning during the COVID-19 pandemic. Time is yours.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Alif Ananda, STA KBP. Thank you for your question. Well, frankly speaking, the online learning, it is rather difficult to assess the non-cognitive aspect. I'm sure we all know about this. I think this is a limitation of online learning. However, of course, we still can assess some aspects such as their discipline in following our activity in all activity we have designed. Then we also can monitor their attention when we have a synchronized meeting using Zoom. So the activity, we can see what they do. That's why I propose the blended learning. This aspect need further research and development. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Samuel, for your answer. So now I think we still have a time. So we open for the second session. And actually we have collect during the speaker presentation. And here we can see the question. Okay. The previous question, there is no Dr. Ahmed, so please don't be sad. Here, you have two fans also. Okay. The first question comes from the Rizal, from the Universitas Negeri Padang, addressing to the Associate Professor Dr. Awanis. The question is, would you share to us about the utilization of the Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok in the learning process in Malaysia, means like the social media. And the second question from the Yuriza Maulidina, Universitas Negeri Padang, addressed to Associate Professor Dr. Ahmed. The question is a little bit too long question. The literature classified KAMs in industry common versus entity specific and audit specific KAMs. These entity specific and audit specific KAMs are more likely to be useful for users of financial statement than industry common ones, since though the study findings provide insight with regard to these types of KAMs. And the third question comes from Asri from the Universitas Negeri Padang, also addressed to the Dr. Ahmed. The question is, historically, Indonesian accounting is influenced by the United States. Does research show differences in EAR between role-based and principal-based systems, such as in the United States and England? And the last question from the Asri, but not the same university. She comes from the STKIP Aisyah Riau. This question addressing to the Dr. Samuel. The question is, instructional media be an important thing in online learning? Based on your experience, which instructional media had a good impact to student motivation and achievement? So now we proceed with the first question. To Associate Professor Dr. Awanis, time is yours.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Rijal. It's an interesting question. It's a very good question that you asked. Okay, how would you share to us about utilization of Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok in the learning process in Malaysia? Like Prof. Shamwil mentioned that in Malaysia also we are using blended learning. Okay, usually this particular application that we are using, we use that to assess students in terms of their functional working skills, such as communication skills, digital skills. If they have sometimes numeracy skill, in some cases if they can use statistical analysis, and then they are able to do interpretation usually is more towards cognitive skills when you do the problem solving. So it's actually we have to assess 11 skills for Malaysian students, university students, that is being outlined by the MQA. So to answer your question, how do we blend using this Twitter or using this TikTok, using Facebook, using Instagram, for example? There are some assignments that the lecturer asks students to do. They ask the student to present in terms of themselves, because the lecturer tries to look at how does the student interact, how creative the student use the application to forward of the assignments, whether it is interesting or not, and so on and so on. So usually this kind of social media, they use the student are asked to do a video of them, or asked to do some presentation of their assignments, like maybe their research, or in terms of the application that you have done. So they have to present it and post it in the social media. So this is one type of assessment that we are looking at the ability, the ability of the student to use digital skills, the digital skills. That's it.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Awanis. So we can conclude that everything that we can use in the education learning hopefully can be beneficial for the improving education.
Yeah.
Okay. Now we proceed with the next question. The question addressing to Associate Professor Dr. Ahmed. Time is yours.
This is very interesting question. We collected data about entity level and account level key audit matters, but in this study we didn't analyze it because the study now is quite long. There's a lot of analysis, but we did analysis about this in another paper, and our results suggest that account level key audit matters are more related to audit fees, for example. So the second paper was about the relation between audit matters characteristics and audit fees, and we found that account level audit matters are more significant and has more significant impact on audit fees. But in the studies that I presented, we didn't discuss this issue. For question number, but of course it's very interesting question, and there might be someone do this in another study. This paper is under review now in British Accounting Review, so we don't know if the reviewers may ask this or not, but if they ask it, we collected this data already. Yeah. So the third question is, again, it's very interesting, and as I mentioned, this is a growing area of research, and there is a lot of ideas that a lot of researchers can apply. To my knowledge, there is no paper compare US and the UK. So normally they use data from UK because UK was the first country to apply key audit matters. But to my knowledge, there is no paper compared between both markets. Just one paper make a difference between adapters and the non-adapters. So this still they didn't compare key audit matters here or extended audit reporting here and there. So I think this is a new research idea, and you can develop it to do a paper, for example. But this is still a gap in the literature.
Okay, well, thank you very much for Associate Professor Dr. Ahmed. Actually, he answered second and third question together. Okay, now we proceed with the last question in the session, addressing to the Associate Professor Dr. Samuel. Time is yours.
Okay, thank you very much from Astri. Thank you for your question. This is a very interesting question. Well, this based on my experience for using the media. This I used in this activity for the last June 2021. In my experience, the media which give positive impact of the media that involve the student using them. For instance, when I taught cost accounting, I use a report form for cost of good manufacture, cost of goods report. And then when I deliver, then when I send with using the media, using the PPT, but the student I asked to take it out, to download it, and then put in the computer. And then we, in activity, we do it together. We do it together. They involved in doing the activity, what we make. So the media involve the student to do it. Thus, this not only me, they answer the question, not only me to do it, but I ask them to do it. So the teacher, what the teacher use, the student do it in the same time in this activity. So this in the accounting, cost accounting, I did in this. So I asked them a student using the two, one smartphone, another one computer. Smartphone using for the PowerPoint, what I say. So that I do synchronous. This is what I did. This is my experience now. So because of that, I say in this activity, this synchronous, we should do synchronous in activity for doing the activity. So we have to involve students doing what we do together. So this what I did. Thank you very much. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for Associate Professor Dr. Samuel. Very clear answer. So now actually we come out with the end session. So we just open for the 1 and 2 session. And all of the question already answered by our 4 great speakers. So now I'd like to say thank you very much for Associate Professor Dr. Awanis, Associate Professor Dr. Ahmed, Associate Professor Dr. James, and Associate Professor Dr. Samuel. And also thank you for everyone who attending today's 7th PICEEBA conference, international conference. Anyway, if you have any question, please contact our committee in charge, and then you will also receive a follow-up email and about our recording today's. So on behalf of the conference committee, economic faculty, Universitas Negeri Padang, and thank you very much for the our great invited speakers and our respected guys who have come and attend our conference in our Dean room. And thank you very much for joining us today, and we'll be back to our MC. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Okay, thank you for Assistant Professor Husnul Khotimah, PhD, and let me give applause for our moderator and all the invited speakers. Okay, the next agenda is the closing speech by Vice Dean of Student Affairs of Universitas Negeri Padang, Associate Professor Dr. Yuhendri. Time is yours. Okay, maybe there is some trouble in connection. Maybe before the Vice Dean of Student Affairs will give this closing speech, I will give some information for our guests and our participants. The parallel session will be start at 1:30 p.m. So please keep in touch for information of the parallel session. The information will be shared on the WhatsApp group of presenter and the authors. Maybe the Vice Dean already coming in the Zoom. Okay. We ask for the closing speech by Vice Dean of Student Affairs of Universitas Negeri Padang, Associate Professor.
Baik, oke. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Alhamdulillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalatu wassalamu ala asrafil anbiya'i wal mursalin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi rasul ajmain. Amma ba'du. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. the Honorable Dean, Vice Dean at Faculty of Economics, and Dean at Dean at Universitas Negeri Padang. The Honorable Professor, Head of Program, Lecture, and Staff in Faculty of Economics, Universitas Negeri Padang. The distinguished our invite speaker, the excellent author and participant. We are proud that today our keynote speakers have shared knowledge, enlightenment, and new information that is very important. It's very important, the use. We get the most important inspiration today from Associate Professor Awaniku Ishak from University Utara Malaysia, Associate Professor Ahmed Elamar from Brunel University, United Kingdom, Associate Professor James Azelton from Macquarie University, Australia, and Associate Professor Sambil from Universitas Negeri Padang. They have give you now insight regarding opportunity and challenge for economics, business, and education, and new normal and VUCA era. Today's situation, we are facing a pandemic which is still a major health problem around the world. Give fear and uncertainty to economic life, especially business in the small medium enterprise sector with slow technology adoption, including the world of the education is faced with a process that must be remote, no longer gathering in class, but using the internet and online networks, requiring us to build and develop and priority learning designed for students to take an active role in the learning that we plan. Lost job and new job emerge with this situation, including in the various professional field and our graduates. That this includes what was explained by our invite speakers regarding some of the implication and the funding of research on the field of economics, accounting, management, and economic education. Ladies and gentlemen, the discussion gave meaning for use. They continue to improve our readiness to enter a new world with an atmosphere of VUCA, both in the industrial and education world. This material can be defined in the discussion of the parallel sessions that will be held this afternoon. And hopefully, the author and participants can convey more the in-depth ideas to elaborate the result and of the research carried out and discuss with college in the available rooms. The implementation of this activity is fully supported and carried out by a solid team from the Faculty of Economic UNP. Hopefully in the future, our event will be better and contribute significant to the development of the field of economics, accounting, management, and economic educations. We, as the leader of FAUNP, would like to thank to 7th PICEEBA committee for working hard, taking their time and energy so that our conference runs well and smoothly. And I also thank the participants who have participated in the series of events from beginning and the end. Amazing achievement with more than 102,000 participants either on Zoom and YouTube. We hope that in the future PICEEBA Age activities will help with their participation and also have a greater contribution to scientific development and the practical work as an implication of research being developed. We pray to Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, our program is blessed and give blessing, and hopefully all of you well, always be gifts, long health and success. That all I can say in this fact by saying Alhamdulillah. I close plenary session of the 7th PICEEBA. The last, I'm looking forward to seeing you again and another question in the near future. Thank you very much. Wallahu wafi'ilak mutarik. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
This is the end of the opening ceremony of the 7th Padang International Conference on Economics, Education, Business Administration, and Accounting, PICEEBA 2021, hosted by Faculty of Economics, Universitas Negeri Padang, Indonesia. We are thankful to all guests and the participants for the attention of this ceremony. According to the agenda, presentation will be start at 1:30 p.m. See you in the next event of PICEEBA. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, the Professor.
Thank you very
Ahmad.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Dr. Husniya, thank you.
Thank you, James. Ayah, Samuel, thank you very much.
Ayah Samuel.
Thank you.
Yeah.
James.
James, thank you very much.